So at this point, I would like to introduce our library's new interim dean, Dr. Bernadette Muscat, to share a few words.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it. So welcome to our beautiful Fresno State Library and campus. Very happy to have everybody here, which is wonderful. Our event today is part of the library's ongoing multiliteracy series aimed at providing students with knowledge and skills that intersect across multiple academic disciplines and careers, as well as personal well-being. The library is a shared space for our campus and community where we explore, collaborate, and learn from one another. We are excited to bring this discussion to you today. I would like to thank the Student Health and Counseling Center and to the many individuals who have contributed to making this important event available to all of you. I would like to extend a particular thank you to our moderator and to all of our panelists. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would do introductions first, right? Okay. So I think that passes to you then.
So I'm Sam Hitty-Tripp. I'm a librarian here. This one is Georgiana Bromham. She'll be our moderator today. She's a health educator at the Student Health and Counseling Center, focusing on mental health awareness, services, and programs. She's a two-time alum of Fresno State with a bachelor's and master's degree in psychology. She works closely with the counseling department to promote their services, encourage access, and reduce stigma, as well as provide opportunities for students to build skills for prevention and better mental health management. We also have Ruben Garcia. He is a member of the Manchester Band of Como Indians and is currently working as the Native Wellness Director at the Fresno American Indian Health Project. Ruben has been working in Fresno and the Native community for the past 10 years, focusing on increasing access to culturally appropriate services. Over here we have Karina Gallardo-Montoya. She has been in organizing spaces for the past 8 years throughout the Central Valley, advocating for access to all types of critical resources for our communities. She is currently working at Planned Parenthood Monte to ensure access to reproductive and sexual health care, and is mainly working with college students across the CD to support college campus efforts to leverage youth organizing Central Valley. Back over here, we have Jose Rivas. He works as the CalFresh coordinator right here on campus for the Food Security Project. He is pursuing a bachelor's degree in public health with a concentration in health administration, and is set to graduate in the spring of 2023. Oh, that's fun. Congrats. He has helped students across campus access essential food assistance benefits, ensuring they have the necessary resources. And back over here, really making me work too. Erica Ventura is in her second semester in the master's program for social work. She is an intern at the Student Health and Counseling Center, Project Hook. In this internship, she supports students that are experiencing challenges with basic needs, housing insecurity, financial challenges. Being a first-generation student herself, she understands firsthand these struggles. So please join me in welcoming all of our panelists and moderator.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. So again, we're talking about health literacy. So a Healthy People 2030 definition of health literacy is a degree to which individuals have the ability to find, understand, and use information and services to inform health-related decisions and actions for themselves and others. Truly, it's about how to navigate health systems and advocate for your health. So navigating and advocating. Me personally, when I think about health advocacy, I think about sitting, out of my comfort zone in the doctor's office, and you get under 3 seconds or 5 minutes. You don't even know that time seems to change. So even your perception of time has changed. You're sitting there thinking, how am I going to remember everything I need to ask? What do I even need to know? What are they going to say? And I think a lot of it has to do too with, kind of sitting there not wanting to feel stupid or embarrassed because you're asking them questions or thinking that you're asking them questions. But I think over the years, when I've kind of been in those situations, how I've adapted kind of my own health literacy skills is kind of weighing the risk. Like, yes, there might be risks to, me feeling embarrassed, but I really wanted to have the information, because with those information, I can make the best decisions for myself. I can empower myself with information leading up to, during, and after I get that information, so I can really find the options that best fit me, and even challenge the information that I've given to know that, again, it's about my life and my health, and I get to dictate and decide those things. So that's kind of my personal experiences with that. But I can also give some additional insight to the varying aspects of this topic. So for our first question, so for any of the panelists, how are beliefs about health and wellness created and taught? Or otherwise, how are some myths about health, or what are some myths about health that you want to dispel?
Hi everyone. So I think when I think about health, I think about my household. I come from a Mexican household, and it's hard for us to actually go to the doctor because sometimes either you do not qualify for it or you go to you really need to go. And learning about health literacy, it's important to me because my mom, she is diabetic and she didn't really never took care of herself. And with her not taking care of herself will lead to a lot of consequences, such as like now she's in hemodialysis, had a stroke, and because she didn't know better, right, like how to take care of herself, eat healthy, and us as a young students, we should be aware of like taking care of herself. And sometimes we think of when older people tell us, oh, you have to take care of yourself, but we dismiss it many times. That has happened.
I can go out here. We could just stay on that side. Yeah, so for me, just thinking about health literacy, I think is my experience is a little unique. Growing up on a reservation, our health care was about like 2 hours away from where we were, and we did have satellite care that was there, but one of the things was with my family, our elders and things, there was a lot of distrust in the services and in the healthcare services. On one hand, I would have elders, including my mother and my aunts, and who struggled like that with diabetes, just like our other panelists here, and cancer is very prominent throughout my community, my tribe, and my family. We had that, and then on the other hand, there was a real resistance to even access any healthcare due to the distrust. That's something that was kind of ingrained early on, and I moved into Fresno in the city, and healthcare is a lot more accessible. However, that distrust, it just doesn't go away, and it becomes more of an intergenerational thing for a lot of families and community members. So, for me, it's really looking at that and speaking to the myths too. I come from a federally recognized tribe who can benefit from things like Indian health services. And a lot of times those are looked at as free services, yet, as the myth, right? But really, it's really about treaty rights. There's a trade for those things, not something that was given to our population. And the other part of that too is, looking at those tribes who are not federally recognized. Some of the most local tribes here at the Fresno State and Fresno are not really eligible for any of those services, and if they are to any services, it's very limited. So just to kind of keep that in mind, because as you see Native people, there's a perspective of how they look at health and really in a holistic manner, spiritual wellness, emotional, mental, physical wellness. That's a really interconnected experience for our community.
For me, not just coming from Planned Parenthood, but experiencing not having comprehensive sex ed growing up was something that that you have to navigate them as an adult, or you have to, I joke about how I got my sex ed through TV and, just watching or whatever I would talk about with my friends, or maybe when the internet came along and that's like accessible to me, that's how I got my sex ed. My school did not provide that, and this is why I advocate for sex ed, comprehensive sex ed in schools starting at a younger age. And it's really important because that helps us understand ourselves and how we can advocate for things when we do have to go to a health center, right? And ask about, what are condoms, like what are birth control options for myself, what are different things that I need to access to make sure that I'm a healthy individual. And I also have like autonomy in asking for those things without shame or like stigma. So the more we talk about it, the more like this type of education is available in our schools and even like in college campuses too. I think it's really, really important, and it helps us like better navigate the healthcare system, the more knowledge that we have about it.
Hello, everybody. So for me, health literacy is very important since I do come from a high migrant family or a culture that's basically, our education is basically the word of mouth in the community. So for my position specifically for CalFresh, education is one of the things that I wish that our community was more involved in. Growing up, our family was food insecure, and the main thing about CalFresh, about that applying for it, they would take us away, or all the elements like that that would prevent us from accessing the aid. And it wasn't until I got this position I was able to educate my family, our neighbors, our community, and tell them, no, that's not true. So I would say education is a big part of health literacy that we need to advocate and basically reach out to communities that are basically.
So for our next question, in ways the panelists have kind of begun to speak on this. So what are some common barriers to accessing and navigating healthcare? And then what would you say are some of the root causes of these barriers?
Like I was saying, like education is one of the barriers, but also like transportation, cost of healthcare. That's one of the main things that we would always struggle with. Like in the city of Fireball, we had one like doctor that took care of the whole town, and there were times where that clinic or that doctor would not be accessible, and we'd have to reach out to other communities and even ask for rides or whatever the cost was. That was one of the barriers that my family and other families that we come in contact with face. But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Transportation is a huge barrier in the Central Valley. We don't really have access to healthcare facilities in general, and I get that a lot. I work with a lot of students who have to travel an hour or longer to access reproductive health care, and even specifically abortion care. So it makes it that much harder, and it creates stigma to ask for these services as well. But I see that a lot, and an example is that we have a healthcare facility in Visalia, but it's the bare, right? It's just STI testing or like sex ed, just very like minimal. And then we have bigger health centers in Fresno that actually provide all of our health services, like breast exams or cervical cancer exams, like general health exams as well, family care, obviously like abortion care, medication, or surgical abortion. We don't have that, and so we have a lot of folks that have to travel down to Kern or Fresno or further just to get a timely appointment and all that. So I talk about that a lot for folks that don't live in the Central Valley because I don't think they see how huge this region is and how little resources we actually have that are near and actually accessible and like comprehensive of understanding like our identities, understanding like the things that we want to ask for that are very much like stigmatized regarding like your sexual healthcare. So that's a big one. And then we know what's going on like national, right? Like they're putting huge bans on access to abortion and care. Right now, they're in court regarding making the medication that provides abortion, and that's going to disrupt our healthcare system. Like we really, it's terrible. And then we're also seeing a lot of anti-LGBTQ ban or laws that are going into place. They're trying to ban or restrict care to our trans community. And so it's like super, super important that we talk about it, that we, even if you're not someone that needs to seek that type of healthcare, it's important to share that it's still important to our community. And so trying to like expand that is like a huge barrier. It's really hard because it's not just that like funding and all these systems, but it's actual people that are just like against that. And it's horrible. I don't know how to say it, but it's like really horrible. And I work with a lot of like trans youth, queer folks, and they're just like, why is this happening? Or like, is there something wrong with me? They kind of get into like that narrative, and always to reassure them that we're here for them, right? That like, no matter what, we're gonna do whatever we can to provide this like critical healthcare for you. And within that system, that the folks that work in these healthcare centers are also like comprehensively understanding like who our folks are in our community, and that they understand like what all their identities are, that they have the education to properly give service to someone without like stigma, without shame, without making them feel unimportant or that they are less than someone else. So, yeah.
For me, I think one of the common barriers would be language. As you can see, my they just like my third language, and also it will be the language barrier because there's a lot of indigenous people that do not speak, that have limited speaking Spanish and then English, and to be able to have access services, medical services, it will be it's very challenging for them. And also again, like my partner here said, is stigma and the shame of seeking help, feeling vulnerable, and we see that a lot within my program, Project Hope. Some students are scared, shy because of the know of what might happen if they seek those assistance. So I think that would be some challenges.
No, for me, when I think of common barriers, I think about kind of that knowledge of your rights. The rights to say no, the rights to ask for more, the right to say that more should be offered, but also the right to say this was terrible and it should be better. So again, there's a lot of elements of that too when it comes to barriers and understanding what you have the right just to say and do in decisions, and the power you have in decisions you can make. Our next question. What are some ways you recommend to advocate for yourself or your community in regards to health and wellness?
I think one of the things for self-advocacy is really trying to stay informed, of what's in your community, what's being offered to you. And really kind of taking a close look at that to look at what's available to you that's culturally appropriate. And I think that's one of the things that is important, to myself, and I know to a lot of my family is when we do access services and health services, the first it's usually through Indian Health Services. But it's even then, it's like you would think Indian Health Services would be the most appropriate or the most competent in that, and that's not always the case, you know. So I think it's really about not only learning about what's available, but also, and it's hard to say this because a lot of times it comes down to you educating the providers or you educating the systems that you access, and you know, not everybody has the ability to do that, or you know, the strength to go through those conversations and share those spaces. Yet, you know, just know that, you know, like there's people in the community that can help with that and reach out and stay connected to those advocates because it's important. And one of the things too is like, you know, as an advocate, we don't just do it for ourselves, but we're doing it for our community and those that come after us.
Something that for yourself, I would say that you already took the time to go get healthcare, which is already like really difficult, and you're going to that. When you're there, know and feel confident that they're there for you, right? And that you're able to ask whatever. And if you're not, you don't feel good about like who's providing a healthcare service to you, to ask for someone else. That's totally okay. I've been in that position where I asked for, you know, STI testing somewhere, and they were like, you know, they shamed me, they did, you know, it was a really bad conversation, and it's not okay. And I immediately said, I would like to see a different doctor. I don't want to follow up with this doctor. That was not okay. I did not like, you know, how I was treated, the language that was used towards me. And there was no issue. It was like, okay, no problem. And I felt very empowered in that moment because the nurse came in and said, you know, you're not the first one to say that. That's really interesting. That should be a conversation in admin. And they asked me if I would like to report something or whatever, follow up, and I did because I was like, you know, I don't want other people to experience that. And I just asked for something that I'm really comfortable asking for. You know, it's routine, no big deal to me, but the way that I felt was not okay. And so that's just one step. And I always tell people, like, ask for what you need. You've already got there. Just do it, you know. And then I would also say that sharing that, right? Sharing your experiences is really important. We talk about a lot of destigmatizing healthcare and specifically abortion care. And so in my realm of work, we're always telling people, like, don't be ashamed to talk about having an abortion. You know, the more we talk about it, the less it will, there's not like stigma around it. It shows that it's a critical service in our community and that we need to have access to it. And then it's normal and it helps you like connect with other people. It helps you realize that, you know, it's not a bad thing or something to be ashamed of, but it's just like a necessary healthcare service that you should have access to no matter what your situation was at the time or is, that you can talk about it and you can share that in your community. And I constantly tell people like my story and all that, and then I connect with people, and it's so beautiful for someone to just be like, no way, me too, or like, oh, my sister, oh, my partner, or something. And it's just very validating, and I think that helps me like advocate for reproductive care and abortion access, because it's not something wrong or dirty or like whatever all that stigma that comes with it that we've constantly been taught through our media or all these things. It's like, no, it's really common, it's fine, it's not a big deal, and it's another healthcare service, another thing that you can just have access to. So talk about it, tell people, obviously like to your comfort level, but I think it's really, really important to constantly share our stories and tell people, and it helps improve our systems. You know, if we're able to speak out, I think it really does improve our systems.
We said it all, and also just like it's okay not to know sometimes. It's definitely okay, and just if you don't know, it's okay, and don't be ashamed to go because you don't know. You will always find an answer to it.
So then for each panelist, we'd like to hear, for your particular service, what is one thing you want students to be aware of?
their services at CalFresh here from the state. So students are more than eligible to apply if they meet basic eligibility. There are those students that are applying for their international DACA or dream status. But we recently partnered up with Fresno Mental Ministry, which they actually offer those services to students. So unfortunately, on my end, I cannot do that. So we reached out to other community partners that are able to access or break those barriers for those students. In my case, for my job, I help students that are either enrolled here at Fresno State, or sometimes we also get other students from other campuses trying to enroll. They find our page, and I help them out through the process as well. Students that are student employees here are already exempted, so they don't have to meet the other requirements in order to basically be able to apply. And there are about like 30 programs that under the Fresno State catalog that are exempted as well. So as long as they're enrolled in those programs, they're always welcome to apply and be potentially accepted. And for a household of one, the maximum is $281 a month. And if they apply with the family or anyone else, that just increases.
The follow-up is a deeper to the student cover here on campus. If you have more questions about CalFresh, I would encourage you to reach out and check out the student cover.
Yeah, so in my particular role as a case project co, we assist students with financial students that are facing financial challenges, and also emotional support like linkage to counseling. Those students that are have experiencing housing insecurities as well. Also, we refer students to the for advocacy like college. So just don't be afraid to seek for help if you need it.
For us, we provide a lot of services. So we do reproductive health care and then also family care. And that goes from different, just checkups, like just general checkups, like vaccination. We do different types of birth control. We do STI testing and treatment as well. And then abortion services, gender-affirming care services as well, super critical. And then, we just do a lot more than what folks assume, right? For abortion, which is great and wonderful, but we actually do so much more. And what I would really let folks know is that just asking, call, try and make an appointment, and ask for what you need. It's fine. Like they'll let you know if it's available or not. Confidentiality is huge with us, not just because we're a provider, but if you're under 18, like we're not going to contact your caregiver, your parent. Most of our services tend to be free if you qualify for it under the PAC program, and which is pretty sweet. You can get like all medication covered, or it's like a scale base. It just totally depends. It's like really easy to fill out. Your immigration status does not matter. We don't look into that. Like it's really minimal stuff that we ask for, and it's more so to track, to make a file for you of okay, if you're going to get treatment for long term and things like that. It's not necessarily we're reporting to other things. So that's huge. I think a lot of people believe that, it's going to cost a lot, or, it's not accessible because of my status, things like that. And that's not necessarily the truth. And I tell that a lot to high schoolers too, because they're like, I want my mom to find out that I'm going to do this or that, and it's no, we don't even go through that. We don't require any of those things. So, let people know that we try to be as accessible as possible.
Yes, a quick commercial break here. We're a community benefit organization that is also a medical provider. We're a federally qualified health center, so it can be, your primary care home. We also have pediatrician services, so that's some of our bigger services. We also offer behavioral health that is there. We have multiple therapists on site. We have health educators for family education. That starts our perinatal program, goes all the way up. We have youth services also that really we start to work with youth 5 years old all the way up to 17. And we also work with transitional age youth as well. And then my department is supportive services and really focusing on getting our community members connected to culture, reconnected, and also being able to connect them with the services that are available to them at our agency, but also out in the community. So it's a really broad network that's happening over there. It is very specific to a community, yet we also, for medical and therapeutic services, offer for non-native clients and patients as well. So it's not exclusive, it's just something that's really targeting a specific group.
For our next question, share some tips for making the most of and asking questions during a health appointment, either with a doctor, a therapist, an insurance department, an insurance provider, or even like a human resources. And tips for making the most of and asking questions. Sure. So yeah, tips for making the most of an appointment or for how to ask questions during the appointments.
I would say that the first thing that pops to my head is like make a list of what questions you want to ask, and you can write it on the phone or in a piece of paper, like have bullet points. That's what I usually do when I go to see a doctor, just to get the most of his time and my time.
I was going to say, Liz, too, just to add on to, I think it was said earlier, to know that like that's your time when you go in there, and to make sure that that list is something that you stick to, you follow, and just stay close to that. And also, like what I see, or sometimes I'll recommend too, is that even you find someone you trust or someone who cares about your health as well, and talk with them about your list too, and kind of go over those things so that you have somebody on your side, and when you go into that room that you have that confidence to be able to carry out your plan. And don't leave until you're satisfied with what you need, what your needs are.
I would totally follow, I do exactly what you say. But I would even go to your healthcare provider's, website and really do some like deep diving into like who you're going to get healthcare from, because sometimes they offer way more than what you might know, or it might not be the right place for you either, right? And have that option of like autonomy, like that's not what I want, like I should go somewhere else and look. And again, having someone that you trust and talking through it is so helpful, because you never know. Sometimes there's so much stigma around healthcare that we just don't assume that our closest friends might also be going through the same thing. And ask them, like, where'd you go? What'd you ask? What'd you do? And can you come with me, or can you drive me there? That was huge. Like as a young adult, I would always ask my bestie or someone like, hey, can you take me? I don't care if you're sitting in the car, I'll get you coffee. But knowing that at any time I can walk out and just have someone that I trust immediately right there is huge, really big. Or just the drive home, talking about like, that was terrible, or like, that was great, and they can help you like walk through like next steps, and having that support is major. And I love what you said, like, don't walk out until you're satisfied. Huge. It really is, because sometimes you're just told and you're left really confused, and you can actually be like, hold on, like, can you give me more information about that? You've got to have like some type of pamphlet on that or something. Like, I don't want to walk out of here with more questions. And even right there and then, ask for your follow-up, right? Like, what does that look like? Is it in-house? Do I need to go somewhere else? do you prefer? Don't try to walk out with like less questions and more answers, so that you feel really confident when you walk out and you can make a loose plan of like, okay, this is what it's looking like. This is what my health is gonna look like for the next couple weeks or whatever it may be. And then a follow-up is of like, who do I contact if I need, like, I don't like my treatment or I feel funky about it, whatever. Who is that? Because you don't want to wait until you're in the emergency room. Or like, you want to avoid that. Like, that is awful. So it's like who or where, what's like a follow-up plan. So that's really helpful because it gives you confidence, like, okay, like I know where to go. If things go wrong, I know how to navigate that, and you're not just panicking or having anxiety about it. Like, that's such a terrible feeling to walk out with. So.
Thank you. Excellent information that's being shared. So kind of further, what resources do you use or recommend others use to find good health information? Or in other words, how do you know that you're getting information from a reputable source, but also a source that is truly inclusive? Good information or good reputable source.
Yeah, I like what was said on the other side there about really kind of doing your research on the website, really kind of getting familiar with what's available to you, and also the peer support, right? Like finding people who can help you and support you through that, or have been through the process that you're looking forward to. Also, kind of reaching out to any like community organization, because I know for us, like we're kind of like a hub for information where people can come in and really get credible sources. And I know social media it can be its own world. However, there are credible resources, but it's really good to investigate what sources you take from social media and online as well. So, and I say that because like we also were at a time where we're putting out a lot of social media from our primary care providers. Our doctors were out speaking on different health concerns, health related activities that you can get involved with. So I think it's really just about, looking at what is credible to you and what relates to you, but then also really looking at are other people actually accessing these things too, so that that you're not on your own island somewhere. So.
How you find good information? Identify a reputable source. Absolutely, definitely. No, I think that I would kind of further add. I think talking to finding online communities, because I think definitely the .gov resources can be good, but I think it's also about finding things that are the right fit for you as a person. That's part of your identity, and so a lot of times it's maybe finding an online group of folks who might have gone through that and had to make those decisions, where you can really get that insider information and kind of learn from the lessons they have learned, so you can make those better choices. And so that could be within your own community or your own family and friend circle, but that could also be those online group and support group opportunities too, so that you can hear a little bit more about what folks went through and how you can navigate it better with what they're sharing too.
When you're researching for the healthcare that you want, there's key language that points to good healthcare. So and it's probably not always on the website or things like that, but there's indicators of specific, if they do gender affirming care, you're gonna see certain language, right? You're gonna see LGBTQ plus inclusive or certain logos, and these are just little flags for you to be okay, I will feel safe in this space, or it's welcoming, and even just the inclusivity of the language that they use, when you're doing your forms too, if they might, have pronouns, and that sounds so simple, but it's that's kind of major, it's a big deal, we should be very inclusive about our pronouns, and that's something that we've noticed where it's are they going to, identify correctly, and if you're already feeling that way, maybe that's not the place that you necessarily want to be at. And then also be on the lookout for like services that are religious based. I didn't talk about this, but it happens a lot regarding abortion care and services where there's pregnancy crisis centers is what they're called, and they're anti-abortion centers. And so they seem like they'll help you and they'll walk you through, and it sounds like, okay, like they're gonna walk me through, this process, and it's not what it is. So be, aware of that like, unfortunately, abortion is not provided at every single healthcare center. You can't do it at Kaiser, like that's an example, and which is, I didn't know that. But, when they refer you somewhere else, like be sure that they're not sending you to like a crisis center that's like, they're just trying to talk you out of the care that you want to have an abortion. And we see this a lot in the Central Valley. There's a lot of anti-abortion groups out here. So yeah, be aware of like that language that's used. Like if it doesn't seem that it aligns with you, keep looking.
Yes, definitely. Other things like when it comes to language, looking specifically if they speak under a language or offer the services, and kind of put on their website or otherwise advertise that they can offer in multiple languages. It can be another thing that's a benefit for you. And really getting all that information, asking about additional options, knowing that there are always a myriad of options that you have available to you, and you have every right to ask for all the information, to seek it out yourself, and to know and say, are those my only options? Or I would like to try this option instead. Can your center help me with that? And if not, can you refer me to a center who can? Or I'm gonna walk out of here now and go find a center who can. So for kind of more of a personal question, so what drives your motivations to advocate for health resources and education in your community? Why are you personally passionate about the work that you do?
For me, it's my family, because sometimes the language is a barrier, and me knowing that I can help them with something, and I can help other communities that might experience the same situation. That's my motive, and also just knowing that what services are available for them too.
I think that it's personal. I remember not having access to healthcare. I remember as an immigrant, I remember being like, I can't go. They're gonna ask me for stuff that I don't have, or I don't know how to say that in English, or all these like shame and stigma around like not having access to healthcare. I talked about it earlier. I don't want to drive an hour to go get something that I should just be able to go down the street for, right? And so I know that I'm not the only one that experiences barriers to healthcare, and that really motivates me. Like, how can I make it more accessible? How can I make sure that these things are in my community, in my county, and that I don't have to like travel or make it super, super hard to get somewhere. Specifically because, I'm a Planned Parenthood mom too, but, access to abortion is so critical right now. And as we see like these bans popping up, and although we live in California, that's not guaranteed. Okay, like that's not, we shouldn't conform to that we live in California and it's fine, it's no big deal. Well, it's not true. It's really hard to access reproductive and sexual health care in general. And, I'm based in Tulare County, and it's really hard to get a facility that provides all the healthcare services that we normally do in like Fresno or bigger cities. And we have to literally like advocate with like the local planning commission and city council to get a facility open. And they're so anti, reproductive care. That's what it is. It's not, they're just anti-abortion because we provide more than that. And when I talk to people in my community and they say that this type of service is life-saving, that it's critical to their well-being and to the loved ones that they care about, that's what drives me. And like I said earlier, like I work with young folks a lot, and they're just like, why not? Like, why don't we have access to this? And they're so passionate about, like, this is so important, and like, we should be talking about this, and this should be just given, it's our right to have access to reproductive care. And we shouldn't have to beg for it, and we shouldn't have to be fighting for that. So that really motivates me when I talk to people and I can relate and say, like, yeah, like, it's true. We should not have to beg for basic healthcare necessities in our community.
Yeah, I think for me it goes back to family as well. Just being able to increase the awareness of, for me it's really like an interconnected thing because, like in my family, like my mother had come from a family of 10, and all of them have diabetes, and more than half of them have passed through cancer. And there's only one survivor now out of my aunts and uncles. And, that's something for me that coming from a reservation into an urban area, I thought was a unique experience. However, when I start to connect with the Native community and those around me, it's not unique at all. It's something that's happening throughout all Native communities. And not to say that, it is detrimental. However, we're constantly working on improving our communities and improving our wellness and on all four of those areas that I mentioned earlier, because it is really interconnected. Because when we lose our elders or when we lose our community members, we lose things like languages, we lose things like our history, we lose things like our traditions. And for us, we've been upstanding a long-standing battle of really just trying to exist and create an identity for our communities. So when we talk about health, it's really about establishing our communities to really set a foundation and move forward in a healthy way to reclaim a lot of what we've lost. So, for me, it's personal, and it's very, it's something I'm very passionate about because I have children of my own that I want them to be healthy, and I want them to know their culture, and them to know their traditions, and to continue that cycle, because there's so many cycles that impact not only my community, but all of our communities, that harms our community, but at the same time, like, we're all working towards, health and wellness to really sustain and survive in a good way for our people here.
Wrap up on, but I did want to give folks one final opportunity if there was any last thoughts or words or advice you would give to folks when they're making health-related decisions, or any kind of words of encouragement to compel them to take action.
I would just like to second, like one of our panelists said, is just continue to share your story. Because that's where the experience comes, the relationships come, and the power comes from that. And I think another thing that I would say is, like, we do have to fight for these things. It's unfortunate, but a lot of change happens because of fights and civil rights movements and people who step up to the plate. So I think it really comes with sharing those stories and creating those communities that are able to step up and support each other.
Well, I think for me, I'd like to share, one final thing. It's a personal story, so I'm trying to sort of take the note from everyone. So recently, my mom was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she is in Puerto Rico, and she was having this debate of, should I come to the States to get better care, or should I stay in Puerto Rico? And I was telling my mom essentially that decision was up to her, that, you gotta find that information, research that doctor that's there. She's like, oh, I can go to the Mayo Clinic. Just because the Mayo Clinic is a better or bigger institution doesn't mean it's better or better fit for her or for what she needs or what she wants for her own care. I actually made the joke that just because it's bigger usually means they have better lawyers. So there's things like that. I also told her, when you go to those bigger places, sometimes you're getting an entire team of people, and there's not much of that personal connection or personal touch where you have the same doctor every time, where you can really build a good rapport and a good relationship and feel comfortable and confident when you walk in there that you can get the best care. And so ultimately, maybe she wanted that team of impersonal folks. So it was really up to her to decide what was best fit for her. But know that you have that power to ask those questions, to look up that information, and then once you go down that avenue, to change your mind and to say, this isn't working for me, or this isn't the right fit, and I'm going to go in this different direction. And know that, again, all those decisions are personal and lay in your hands, and you have the power to decide, again, what works best for you and all the things you want and need. So that's me. Any other maybe comments? I have a couple minutes. I just wanted to share.
Hi y'all, I really appreciated the notes y'all had about language access, and I just wanted to know what are some things that you and your organization are doing to build language access